Hey Virgo, welcome to your monthly reading. So this is for Virgo rising or Virgo sun sign for the month of May 2023. So we've just it feels like it's been video after video lately. I guess it's just worked out that way. So I'm feeling that top card there. Interesting Chiron. Okay, I like this already. Which deck are we using for my Virgos? I'm feeling this deck here. All right, so we're going to look at the progression of the month. We're going to take a look at the first third of the month, middle third, and the end of the month as well to get a sense. I'm liking your cards so far, Virgo. Definitely liking them so far. Hella liking these. This is great. Okay, so let's also pull a card for your what challenge is coming up for my Virgos for the month of May. We've got some astrology happening that I definitely want to touch on really quickly. I know I've been integrating some more astrology into the tarot videos. I'm wondering what you guys think. Do you guys think I should keep that separate, or do you like having a little sprinkle of it? And maybe I should start doing videos to talk about these transits more in depth a little bit. Let me know what you think. So I'm also going to see what's going on for some spiritual advice. What do your guides have to say for my Virgo rising or Virgo sun signs? Loving it. Virgo, I think this might be my favorite so far out of the readings I've done so far. So, so really quickly, let's just talk about the astrology. So basically in the first part of the month, we come in on the 1st and we have Pluto stationed to go retrograde. So it's going to station retrograde. It'll be moving back from, you know how it just ingressed into Aquarius, which is a big deal because it was in, Capricorn for basically 15-ish years. And it moved into Aquarius. We talked about that in a previous video. So now it's going to do its little dance where it's going to come back into Capricorn before it comes back into Aquarius. It'll be solidly in Aquarius and stay there for approximately 20 years in next year, in 2024. So for the rest of this year, you can just count on it's not going to be really hanging out solidly there. So just to give you those kinds of themes, you can look at your chart, and you can look at your natal chart and see where Capricorn is and just kind of get a sense of what themes you've been dealing with for that last 15 years. This will be kind of like that wrap up. You might really experience this personally as a wrap up, but you also might just be seeing this on the world stage more collectively. So just something to note. The really big deal that I want to talk about is the May 5th full moon lunar eclipse that's happening in Scorpio. So I feel like this particular eclipse is going to, possibly be emotional, and for a few reasons. Now, remember, I talked about how eclipses are this ushering in and this removal and, taking things out, taking out the trash, releasing things, basically. And part of that is because we have the North Node and the South Node. We had the North Node eclipse, which can really bring a lot of new beginnings and new things in, usher things in. And the South Node can really be about, removal of things, right? So we have a South Node eclipse, which has to do with releasing and letting go. So on one level, we have that. And then it's a full moon, right? It's a full moon lunar eclipse. And so full moons, as we know, can bring emotions to their peak, right? Can really amplify emotions, right? And so I think we're all pretty aware of that. Most people are aware of the full moon energy being a little cray sometimes. And then we also have the moon being in Scorpio. I'm talking about this from a tropical astrology perspective. So sometimes I bring in sidereal, but I'm just talking about it from a tropical perspective in this particular video. So you can look at where Scorpio is in your natal chart, which house that's in, and that will tell you which area of life you can expect to see this, stuff kind of coming up inside of, right? Or where the releasing might be occurring. But in Scorpio is a water fixed sign. And what that means is water, right, having to do with our emotions also. So on top of this, more emotions, more water and stuff. But then fixed signs can sometimes be a little bit stubborn, which is interesting because Scorpio can be about that transformative kind of process, being about transformation and going really deep. And also it can have that kind of like, but I don't want to let this go, but I'm going to hold on to this. Like it can have a difficulty in letting it go and being a little bit stubborn with that. So you might have that kind of energy happening. And also with the moon being in Scorpio, this is a place that's really difficult placement for the moon. It has a hard time there. So that's just like all of these together, we can see there are all of these layers that basically kind of point to like, yeah, this can be an emotional letting go kind of experience. This can also be a place where you've reached kind of like your end point with something, like you're ready to close the book or the chapter on this particular maybe way of being in your life, like an iteration of personality, a type that you were, and you're moving into another growth stage, into a next level of identity. You could be closing the chapter on a relationship, romantic or a friendship or whatever it is, on a project, on whatever it is, essentially being in this place where you're just like, you know what, I feel like I've gotten the lessons that I needed from this and I feel really complete with this. I'm good. I'm letting this go, and be the one to like really release it. I think it's actually lovely when we can be in the more empowered space of like doing the letting go as opposed to like feeling like it's being taken from us. So, you know, just some things to keep in mind, you know, and maybe you're seeing this around like just happening and bubbling up around you, but I think maybe for some people this might be felt more internally as well. So that's how we can look at this particular reading, because we're looking at the whole month. That said, in the middle of the month, pretty much like on May 14th, we have Mercury stationing direct. So it's like, it'll be coming out of retrograde after that. So it's stationing direct on the 14th. Now, after it stations direct, it's like the energy, the momentum takes a little time to build up. It's like, right? It's like, takes a little bit of time to snowball. So things might still not be moving at a pace that you would like them to, but they will start to pick up again and kind of start to feel like more at that normal speed. So remember, like, this is an opportunity for us to do this, like reviewing, revisiting, revising at whatever area in your life this was really occurring. And if you want to check that out, I have a video on my Instagram. It's a reel that you can go check out there to see like what area of your life this is hitting. So enough about that, right? So like, this is the highlights that I wanted to like bring up for the month, because we are looking at the month for your reading. So that said, let's take a look at how we can focus this reading even further, because it is a collective reading. So it's not going to hit for every, you know, Virgo rising, Virgo sun sign. If this feels like it's not totally like resonant as a message for you and you're watching this for your sun sign, go check out your rising and see if that feels more resonant for you. Right? So, and vice versa. And honestly, if you really want to know specifically for you, best way is to get a 1-to-1 reading. And I have like 30, 60, and 90-minute readings. All of that's down below. So let's get into like how we can focus this. So this particular card that came up is Chiron, right? And some of you may be familiar with the asteroid Chiron and its effects in our, you know, in astrology, in our natal chart, like what's the impact that it has. Chiron is definitely this healer, teacher. It's so funny. Like there's a girl that I know who she says it's the apothecary, right? Some people call this the wounded healer. But yeah, this is a place of our deepest healing. The interesting thing about Chiron is that wherever this shows up in your personal natal chart, this is a place where you might feel like at odds with like life and, you know, society at large. You might feel like the odd duck, like the ugly duckling, you know, or like the, you know, who is it? There's an astrologer that says the hunchback of Notre Dame. Like you just feel like odd and, you know, like you don't fit in, like the outcast, the misfit about something in your life, some kind of theme. And this is actually a place, the reason why it's a place of healing and teaching is because it is by working with those wounds and working with that discomfort and working with the feelings that come with that, like this kind of tender place in our chart, that when we work with these lessons, we deeply integrate them and we're able to really learn from them in this way where we can help other people who also experience this. Whether we're actually a teacher or a counselor or not, this can really just be about you know, living through example, even like living your life and being a source of like an archetype who's like worked through this particular kind of pain. So it's essentially transmuting what is a wound and working with that, alchemizing that, and internally, and turning that into something that is a medicine, something that is of use and is healing for ourselves and for others, right? And so I think that that goes really well with this whole, you know, eclipse that we're starting out the month with, right? So with all the themes that I was just talking about. Now, I'm loving the cards that we've got here. We're starting out the month with the World card. We move into the middle of the month with the 10 of Pentacles. Awesome. And then we end up with the 9 of Wands. So, and then the challenge card we have here is the Princess of Swords. And we also have the Strength card as your spiritual advice. So I'm really liking how this is shaping up. Let's get into these one at a time. So with the World card, what we have showing up here is the completion of one cycle and the beginning of a new one. How apropos are these two cards, first of all, for the beginning of this month, for this eclipse of like a South Node eclipse in Scorpio, right? I feel like this is definitely in alignment with what's happening astrologically, right? This is, you know, the ending of one chapter, right? This is the bookend. This is the closing of a chapter of something. And this is moving into that new next stage. And so we start out the beginning of the month with like, this is what's really up for you, right? This is what's really coming up. This is what the themes are around. And, you know, the cool thing about the World card is that, you know, it's the last card in the major arcana. So once you start the new phase, you go right back to the beginning to the Fool card, and you're starting on a new adventure. The possibilities lie before you. All the perils lie before you as well. You don't know what's going to come. It's an adventure. It's a new journey, right? And you're starting from a next level place, but also as a novice at the same time. But you bring with you all of the wisdom that you learned from going from the Fool to the World card in this particular journey, in this particular adventure. And now that you've reached the completion of it, you're able to like really have integrated the lessons that you have learned, and being able to take that with you, that integrated self, and now move that to the next journey, the next chapter, and to the next adventure. And so I think this is a really beautiful card to start out with. We go into the middle of the month and we have the 10 of Pentacles. Whew, talk about coins, talk about legacy, talk about stability, right? And so there are a few things with the 10 of Pentacles, right? We're talking about Pentacles, we're talking about the Earth suit. So remember, when we're talking about the Earth suit, this is about what is tangible, what is grounded, what is sometimes pragmatic, but also what we value. It has to do with our values. And so the 10 of Pentacles is really about, you know, some people talk about it in terms of the, you know, in terms of legacy, like the legacy that we're leaving behind, but it's also about like what we're creating. Another way to look at that is like what we're creating that can stand the test of time. Like, what foundational pieces that are built on our values, on what we value, you know, through what you have learned and integrated, through what you're alchemizing in your lessons, and building upon that, making sure that what you're building going forward, what you're creating to stand the test of time, is built upon your values, and is really something that you want to pass on, that you would want to pass along, whether you have children or not, whether you care about legacy or not, right? Like, this is really just about like, would you want to have this be of benefit, or to pass this on? You know, is this something that you're going to feel proud of, you know, creating for yourself, the way that you're creating your life? You know, and again, these are really just beautiful, powerful cards. And I feel like it's definitely in alignment with Chiron and with what's happening astrologically, you know. And again, this middle third of the month, this is when we have Mercury station direct. And then we come into the last third of the month and we have the 9 of Wands. You know, it's the interesting thing about the 9 of Wands, right? You see this warrior here, and there are a couple ways to go with the warrior, right? First of all, let's say that if you are needing to focus on your health in any way, especially because this healing card is coming up, yes, this can be about psychological healing and like the themes that I was kind of talking about, but it can also very much be about physical healing. So the 9 of Wands can also point to your health and to paying attention to your health, like prioritizing your health and making sure that you are building up your reserves, and making sure that, you know, so that when you need to draw upon them, you can. And I think that makes all the reason I want to start with that is because I think that makes all the difference in the world for how you're able to, it makes all the difference in the world for what kind of warrior you're going to show up as, right? You can either be in this card the warrior who's been through many battles but is like, tired and maybe weary and a little bit wounded and in need of healing, and needs some rest, but like the card says, hey, you still got another battle at least on the horizon. You're not done yet. It's not time. You can't like sit down and rest yet. You got to keep going. You got to have that final push, right? So that's one way, right? That's one warrior that can show up, one way the warrior can show up. The other way that this warrior can show up is as the seasoned warrior, the one who has been, yes, through many battles, is not like a green warrior, like a brand new little green leaf, but is someone who has been seasoned through the battles, through all the battles, like being like the lessons, right? So the lessons in life, going through all of these, maybe trials that you've been through, and integrating that wisdom, bringing that wisdom together, and being a seasoned, wise warrior that can continue because he's able to draw upon his internal resources and his reserves of energy, because he's prioritized his health, because he's like taking care. So like you don't want to like be the wounded, weary warrior who's like depleted, right? That makes going forward for that last push so much harder than if you were to take care of yourself. So I'd say preemptively, just to know to take care of yourself. And that's the thing too about like eclipse seasons and about like retrogrades that are more felt with like the personal planets. Like, one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that planets go retrograde besides Mercury retrograde, right? Like I didn't even know this until I was like really studying astrology, but all the planets go retrograde. They all have a retrograde. So at any given time through some part of the year, there's most of the time, we sometimes have periods of time that we just came out of that all the planets were direct, but like, yeah, we have retrogrades, and these are times like when they are outer planets, it's more collectively felt, but when it's an inner planet like Mercury, we can feel that more, and I think that's why people pay attention to it more. So like these are times that like I would say it's time to slow down and rest. Like this is a time to build up your reserves. And so I feel like that's, drawing up to this particular point in the month. And so I think you have a serious potential to be that seasoned, integrated warrior who's able to keep going and able to draw on their reserves. The challenge that I see coming up here is the Princess of Swords, which is actually the Page of Swords. In this particular deck, it says Princess, right? But it's the Page of Swords. And with the Page of Swords, I think about perspective is the first one that comes to me. Yes, it can be about like, hey, I think you need to do a little bit more research about whatever you're dealing with. Like, I think you need to like do some more digging, maybe like get some, get some good rabbit hole time on your research on the internet or with like people, trusted counsel or whatnot. But really the one thing that's really standing out to me here with this particular card in this reading is about getting perspective, getting up to a vantage point. That's the thing about the Princess of Swords, is like she's up on, not in this particular deck, you don't usually see her up on this kind of like cliff area here, but she's like up on this like kind of higher point, overlooking the situation, really thinking about, like, you think about the swords, you think about thinking, our thoughts, our beliefs, also our communication, and about staying true to ourselves. So I feel like in order to stay like, and also let's just say, let me back up for a second. Like, let's also say that the page is also, again, a very like youthful and curious type of energy, right? Like that's the kind of energy. So it's very curious and very wanting to like research and to know more. I think that there is a point where, in a challenge position, there's like you're doing maybe too much research can also be the thing. Like you're like, it's enough. Like you can't keep ingesting information, ingesting, and not utilizing or not integrating and putting to use like the information that you've gathered, right? There's a point where it's like you can't do any more research, and the research isn't going to be the thing that's going to help you. It's going to be the action. But I also feel like this is a zooming out and getting really curious. Again, with the princess is like getting curious getting really curious about the big picture, looking at the full big picture perspective, and from there getting really curious about which moves you want to make next. Especially with moving into a new chapter, a new cycle, and what's going to be aligned with your values and everything that, going forward. So I feel like that's pretty clear. We also have the Strength card. So much integration is coming up here. Let me just say that, right? Especially these 3 cards here. I just see so much integration happening. So, that's something to just like, if you could take away like one key word that I would say, to take away from this is definitely like integration, right? So that would be one word that I would put out there. So the Strength card is what's coming up as your spiritual advice. One of the things that I really like to point out about the Strength card is that this young maiden, like, imagine if you weren't on a safari, kind of tour or something like that, but you were just kind of out on the plains with no one to guide you, and you came across a lion, right? And here's this maiden who is very friendly, and they're all snuggly and very close, right? This beast, this predator, and she is having this experience that's very close and connected, and she's unafraid, right? And the beast can represent the things that are our shadows, the things that we fear, the things that we've yet to integrate into our life. And the thing about our limiting beliefs or our fears or our shadows or any of those things, like our internal beasts, right, is that when we actually sit with them, when we give them airtime, essentially, when we give them space, when we allow them to say what they need to say instead of plugging our ears and screaming at the top of our lungs, we are able to hear the message that's needed and to integrate that wisdom, that message, that lesson, that medicine, whatever you want to call it, into our life. And then we can walk together side by side with our beasts, as opposed to facing off with them or being afraid of them. And that's the kind of strength that comes from integration. That's the kind of strength that comes from being able to face those things, and as you're moving into this next chapter, as you're closing this out with whatever it is that you're alchemizing and moving forward with, we have your guides saying like, yes, this is where your strength is going to come from. This is where your strength is being drawn from, right? The other thing about this card too is that it actually alludes to Kundalini energy. So like this energy coming through from the cosmos and like coming down and through. So there is this alignment that also happens. I don't know if you can see in this card, like her hand is basically touching this, going up into the infinity symbol, and it's this cosmic connection, and so being connected also on these spiritual levels, I think that we can be in more alignment when we're not creating blockages. Like, think about a kinked hose, and each of our like fears or things that we're not facing is like a little bit of a like an angle and a kink of some kind. And so when we unkink that hose and we allow it to flow freely, and we can be with that and flow with that, there is this power, right? There is this strength that really can come through. There is this alignment, there's this flow and connection. And so the Strength card here really being about real strength, about gentle strength, not about brute force, not about forcing your way through, but about facing the things that need facing. And I think that is something that touches into this particular card as well. Your next battle doesn't mean you have to go in and just rah, and like it has to be like some kind of epic battle, even though it's inherent in the word battle. But like it can be a different kind of experience, right? It can be this kind of experience. And so I think that helps with your reserves as well, with the reserves of energy that I was talking about earlier. So I really love this reading. I have to say, it's really clear, it's really clean, and I feel like this is definitely in alignment with what is happening astrologically, and I just feel like it all goes together really beautifully. I think it's a lovely reading. So I hope that this feels helpful. Maybe even check out the solar eclipse video that I did. Maybe I'll put that up on the screen so that you guys can go check that out, so you can kind of get like more of a full picture of like how this is all coming together. I will have special videos coming out about just the full moon lunar eclipse from that phase to the new moon, right? So from that full moon to the new moon. So it'll come out just a few days after. So I'll have new videos up on the 5th. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure that you hit the notification bell. Also, when you subscribe or when you like these videos, it helps. It's a new channel. I'm building it. So it's lovely. And I appreciate any support that you're willing to give with that. So anyway, I just wanted to say thank you for being here. Sorry, that was my kitty doing that. Thank you for being here. And I hope that this was helpful, and I will talk to you guys in the next video. Bye.